that last night, was an important night, and it's an important day, and I'm really pleased to be joined by my colleagues. So as you know, last night the Cannabis Act completed its legislative journey and passed both chambers of Parliament. We are very pleased to have reached this point in delivering on our progressive policy promise, commitment to legalize and strictly regulate cannabis. There are a few steps left in Bill C-45 before it becomes law, and it is important to state that up front. Cannabis for non-medical use is not legal yet. The law still remains the law. The date that cannabis will become legal will be announced soon. Until then, I urge all Canadians to continue to follow the existing law until the Cannabis Act comes into force. As noted, the legislation is transformative. C-45 marks a wholesale shift in how our country approaches cannabis. It leaves behind a failed model of prohibition, a model that has made organized crime rich and left our young people vulnerable. In its place, we will have a new system that will give adults the opportunity to purchase and consume cannabis legally from authorized suppliers. Most importantly, our shift in policy will protect youth from the health and safety risks of cannabis and keep those same criminals from profiting from its production, distribution, and sale. I also want to mention the companion piece of legislation we introduced the same day as C-45 last April. Bill C-46 will strengthen impaired driving laws, particularly those with respect to drug-impaired driving. This legislation will save lives. While we anticipate this bill will receive royal assent in the near future, I would like to also remind the public that driving while impaired by drugs is and will remain illegal. So with that, I am incredibly proud to have worked on this piece of historic legislation that was accomplished by our government, by parliamentarians, provinces and territories, municipalities, Indigenous communities, medical and legal experts, and all Canadians who contributed to this historic shift. It has also been a great pleasure to have had the benefit of the important work of the members of the task force on cannabis legalization and regulation, who conducted extensive consultations and took these discussions across Canada. And there is one more individual that I would like to thank, and that is our Parliamentary Secretary, Bill Blair, who has been an incredible champion of this legislation. Bill's role in championing this legislation and our evidence-based policy on cannabis has been extraordinary, and Bill has been an integral part of getting us to this place. So thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Minister.
And I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, the Minister of Health.
Bonjour, merci beaucoup, Madame la Ministre. Ça me fait très plaisir, moi aussi, d'être ici parmi vous pour une journée finalement vraiment historique. Aussi, pour commencer, j'aimerais aussi remercier les trois ministères qui ont travaillé très fort pour faire sûr qu'on se rend où on est aujourd'hui. Le ministère de la Justice, le ministère de la Sécurité publique, ainsi que le ministère de la Santé. Il y a plusieurs personnes de notre personnel qui ont travaillé fort durant les dernières 3 ans pour s'assurer qu'on s'est rendu ici aujourd'hui, puis on veut absolument les remercier. Aussi, je devrais souligner le travail que le groupe du travail a fait aussi durant la période au tout début, ainsi que, encore une fois, notre secrétaire parlementaire Bill Blair a fait du travail exceptionnel durant tout ce projet de loi. Aujourd'hui, je dois vous dire, je suis fière de voir que notre projet de loi C-45 a passé le Sénat. Nous annoncerons bientôt la date d'entrée en vigueur sur le projet de loi du cannabis. Nous déterminerons cette date en tenant compte du temps supplémentaire nécessaire pour permettre aux provinces et aux territoires, aux communautés autochtones et aux policiers de se préparer à une transition responsable vers un marché et un cadre légal. Entre-temps, il est très important de se rappeler que le cannabis demeure illégal au Canada jusqu'à la date d'entrée en vigueur sur la loi du cannabis. Nous encourageons les Canadiens et les Canadiennes à se renseigner sur ce qui sera légal ou non de la province où ils résident, sur les effets de la santé de la consommation du cannabis, sur les dangers de la conduite avec faculté affaiblie et sur l'effet que sera toujours toujours illégal à traverser les frontières du Canada avec du cannabis. Aujourd'hui, ce n'est absolument pas la fin de notre travail, mais réellement le début d'une nouvelle étape très importante qui permettra de mettre en place les infrastructures nécessaires pour que la légalisation du cannabis se fasse avec douceur. Maintenant, moi-même, la ministre Wilson-Raybould, ainsi que le secrétaire parlementaire Bill Blair est prêt pour prendre vos questions.
Vous demandez aux citoyens de se renseigner sur ce qui est légal ou pas dans leur province. Au Québec, qu'en est-il de la culture à domicile? Parce que la ministre Charlebois disait il y a quelques jours, suivez la loi québécoise, et M. Trudeau, en mai, sauf erreur, disait suivez la loi fédérale. Alors, que dites-vous aux Québécois?
Encore une fois, on doit se dire que la date d'entrée en vigueur n'a pas encore été annoncée, puis on s'attend que cette date-là va être annoncée sous peu. Pour la question pour le Québec, c'est sûr que nous avons été très clairs que je pense qu'on doit se dire que le projet de loi du Québec et le projet de loi fédéral, il y a plusieurs choses qu'on est vraiment d'accord avec. Et puis, je pense qu'on a donné quand même la flexibilité aux provinces et aux territoires de faire des ajustements aussi. Des choses comme l'âge en question. On peut voir que les provinces quand même se sont rendues à des consensus et puis aussi qu'il y a eu de la flexibilité. Pour la question de cultivation à domicile, je pense qu'on a oublié une partie de ceci aussi. Ça fait plusieurs mois qu'on parle de la question de culture à domicile, mais nous avons dit aux provinces et aux territoires que le maximum de plantes qui peuvent pousser est 4 plantes, mais si une province et un territoire veut se rendre à une plante, il y a quand même pas de problème. C'est complètement à eux à choisir. Fait qu'encore une fois, nous allons continuer à travailler en étroite collaboration avec les provinces et les territoires. Et puis, nous allons continuer à parler aux provinces et aux territoires.
Répondre à la question, quelle loi, or maybe Minister Wilson-Raybould wants to answer. If you don't, I'll ask it in English. Whoever wants to actually answer it can go ahead. In Quebec, and Manitoba, which law will apply whenever there is entry into force of C-45? Will it be that you can grow plants, or will it be that you cannot grow plants? Because Quebec says their law will apply, their cops will apply their law, and you seem to be saying your law will apply.
Well, assuming this is with respect to home cultivation. In terms of, the Quebec, along with any other province, has the ability to pass their own legislation with respect to cannabis. Bill C-45 sets out a framework that we have duly considered over many years. And the framework is permissive with respect to, as you know, home cultivation. To ensure that there is the ability for individuals to grow certain amounts of cannabis at home. The Quebec law and the one in Manitoba speak about zero home cultivation. As I've stated clearly in other forums, it is not the intent of the federal government to challenge provincial laws. That is not our place. However, there may arise a challenge by an individual of other jurisdiction's law.
Which law do you expect people to follow?
Well, again, provinces can set their own laws. If individuals are challenging that law, they can, or if have a problem with that law, they can challenge it.
But with all due respect, you're not being clear. What do you tell Quebecers? Is it legal or not to grow pot once it becomes legal?
Well, there's a law that is duly passed in Quebec, and that's the law of the province. And if individuals do not agree with that law, then they can challenge that law. What we've done in C-45 has put in place a framework. And again, it's not the position of the federal government to challenge particular provincial laws that may come to pass by individuals. Sorry?
When are you going to tell us the date?
I suspect the date will be told very soon, and that is likely the prerogative of it is the prerogative of the Prime Minister, so I suspect that the Prime Minister will have something more to say on that.
Can you explain to Canadians how it's safer for kids, this law that you're passing, when they now have access to 4 plants in their house? How is it safer for kids?
I think we certainly have to recognize that as Canadians, we trust Canadians that if they choose to grow cannabis within their homes, that they are going to be doing so safely. We've made it very clear with respect to the approach moving forward that we are certainly making sure that we have a public health approach as we move forward with respect to Bill C-45. We've provided much information with respect to public education, and we certainly want to make sure that Canadians are aware of the risk related to cannabis consumption.
Under their noses now.
Well, I think we also have to recognize that as Canadians, that many Canadians have alcohol in their home, they have medication in their home, and we certainly believe that Canadians will safeguard the cannabis within their home if they so have it there. So in no way do we think this is going to be any different than with people, perhaps making wine in their home or growing tobacco in their home. So I think we have to trust Canadians that they are going to be doing so responsibly, and we certainly believe that that is going to be the case moving forward.
Will you be giving an amnesty to people with a criminal record? Will there be an amnesty for people with a criminal record?
If I may just make follow up on your question, and quite frankly, you characterized it that this will be readily available to children in a home, and that's simply not true. First of all, every province and territory has been their authority and jurisdiction to enact such regulations to ensure that personal cultivation under any circumstances will be done safely. And so they may pass regulations that put restrictions on it. In addition, within the federal legislation, it's an offense to make this drug available to a person under the age of majority, and we've been very clear in that. And so, frankly, not only do we expect good parenting, but the law requires that any adult who has in lawful possession of cannabis through personal cultivation or something that they've purchased have a responsibility not to make it available to children. And quite frankly, let's also be clear, cannabis is already very much present in our communities and in houses and children. Parents have a very serious responsibility, but the law also places a strict onus upon them to protect their kids from this drug.
About the border, we know that Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale has been speaking to the Americans, trying to get some sort of deal so that there won't be long lineups at the border. Can you tell us where that stands?
Well, you're correct. The Minister of Public Safety has been having ongoing conversations with his counterparts in the United States. For particulars on that, you would have to ask the Public Safety Minister. But suffices to say, we would never impart on an individual country their ability to make laws and to secure their borders. If Canadians are going to the border and passing the border, I would strongly recommend that they answer the questions honestly, and it's still illegal to take marijuana across the border.
Unimpaired driving, I don't know if it's Mr. Blair, or when do you intend on announcing which drug testing devices you will have approved, and what do you say to police forces who say they're running out of time to train and get ready to use them and be ready for the implementation?
Well, again, I'm very happy to speak about C-46, which is the impaired driving bill, which we expect to pass through the parliamentary process very soon, which would create among the toughest impaired driving laws in the world. In the lead up to and during C-46 debates, we have been having ongoing and extensive conversations and benefiting from the work of the Drugs and Driving Committee, who are looking at the devices and will be recommending devices for the oral fluid screeners that I will be able to certify to provide law enforcement officers with an additional tool to be able to detect drug-impaired driving. That is something that is a priority and that we're working on and will come to pass in the near future. But I will say also, in terms of chiefs of police, and I know that my parliamentary secretary can speak to this as well, the Canadian Association of the Chiefs of Police recognize that there are existing comprehensive tools for law enforcement officers to be able to detect drug-impaired driving, which has been an offense since since 1925. We have invested significant amounts of money into training for law enforcement officers to be able to be trained effectively in terms of drug recognition evaluations. So we are confident that we are prepared for royal assent and the coming into force of Bill C-46.
On amnesty, there are people who have small possession criminal records, and that will soon be legal. Is the government considering some sort of amnesty or pardons for people with pot crimes, and when?
Well, again, this falls under the purview of my colleague, the Minister of Public Safety. The Minister and I have had conversations about this. Our focus has been and is the coming into force of the Cannabis Act and ensuring that all the regulations around the legalization of cannabis are in place. At that time, we will, or he will, have consideration around the question that you asked. We've thought about it, but we are focused right now on the Cannabis Act.
Yeah, but is the door open to it? You mean you're saying we're having conversation? We'll see once the bill is passed. What do you say to people who have a minor criminal record? Is there a possibility that they'll get a pardon, or are they just going to remain criminals while everyone else is allowed to do it?
And I think, as has already been stated, the law remains in effect until it's repealed and replaced through Bill C-46. And quite frankly, any discussion of those records can't take place until that process is complete. And so we're working hard for doing the important work of repealing the existing legislation, replacing it with a comprehensive system of regulatory control that will be far more effective in protecting our communities and our kids. And it will then be possible for the government to turn its mind to the issue of the existing records or any disparity that exists thereof.
Is the government open to it?
Well, again, I believe that's premature. We have a responsibility to uphold the existing law, and we are doing that. This is a nation based on the rule of law, and that law is in effect, and we'll continue to uphold it until it is repealed and replaced.
One last question, please. One last
education
question.
campaigns alerting to people of some of the health concerns about this?
Actually, I think we have to take a few steps back, and we've done much when it comes in the area of public education and awareness. When I appeared at the Senate a few months ago, we specifically talked about that, and many of the senators had indicated they hadn't seen the public education campaign. And I guess my response to them, when we look at the numbers of how many hits that we've had on social media and the work that has been done, there's been a lot of investments that have been made, and a lot of programs have been put out there. But I think we have to recognize that perhaps my age group is not the target audience. We're really targeting youth between the ages of 12 and 24, young adults and children, because we certainly want to make sure that they're the ones that get the information with respect to the risks associated to cannabis use and the impact. So much work has been done over the past year when it comes to public education and awareness, and we're going to be continuing doing that work as we roll out over the summer and also in years to come. Pardon me? No, we certainly continue to work on that with respect to the Public Health Agency, and we've also, I have to underline, we've established key partnerships with several groups in Canada as well that provide specialized programs when it comes to addictions. And again, we've partnered with them, and we've certainly seen many of those rollouts come out, and there's going to be more to come. But we're very proud with the work that's been done. We've learned from the experience of Colorado and our friends in the States. If they had to do it again, they had indicated to us that they would have started earlier with public education, and that's exactly what we've done. And I'm proud that we're investing over $108 million in the area of public education and awareness.
Une dernière question en français sur la culture à domicile. Vous dites aux Québécois, vous devez contester la loi québécoise, ou vous dites au Québec, attendez-vous à ce que la loi québécoise soit contestée?
Nous avons dit clairement, je pense que la ministre de la Justice l'a dit clairement, nous n'avons aucune intention d'amener la matière en cours. On ne dit absolument pas ça aux Québécois. On dit, écoutez, la loi que nous avons, qui va rentrer en vigueur d'ici de 8 à 12 semaines, c'est très clair. Et puis encore une fois, nous avons permis aux provinces et aux territoires une flexibilité de faire des amendements, des changements, ce qu'ils veulent. La seule chose, le problème de se rendre à zéro, je sais que c'est un peu le problème comme tel, mais nous autres, on pense que pour décriminaliser tout le processus, nous voulons s'assurer que nous n'allons pas criminaliser les Québécois ou les Canadiens qui choisissent d'avoir une petite somme de culture à domicile à la maison.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.